Longhorn has been in business, I would say, longer than 50 years, but our milestone started in 1965. Prior to that, we used to be Longman, and that was a colonial publishing business that was in Kenya. And then activities from then on, I think, have had the greatest bearing in our business. At the time, they were just bringing books from UK and distributing them into the market. But since 1965, locals started buying in shares into the business. Since then, the next major milestone happened in 2012, just about 5 years ago, when the company's shares were introduced at the Nairobi Stock Exchange by introduction. And soon thereafter, Centum, which is one of the leading investment companies in our region, bought 35% of the shareholding. Before that, the majority shareholder was the Honorable F.T. Nyamo, who controlled over 70% of the shares with a few other investors. But after that, just last year in June, Centum increased its shareholding to 60%. And so we became a subsidiary of Centum, and with it got all the resources that we would have wanted to do to succeed in our strategy, which I'll be talking to you in a minute. We pride ourselves right now to be the leading publisher in our region where we operate. We are also the only public company in the publishing sector in our part of the world. I think we would have to go to South Africa to find anyone else who is listed in our industry. We lead in all the segments of publishing, starting from the early childhood education, primary, secondary, and tertiary. Most of our competitors would target only one sector, like primary, and be very good there. But as we have decided that publishing would be an all-encompassing affair, and we want to be remembered with our vision, which is to be the #1 provider of innovative learning solutions in Africa. #1, and in Africa. So we still have a long way to go. Currently, we are in 11 countries. 4 of them, we have full-fledged subsidiaries, and then the other 7, we use distributors. We have now gone into French Africa, or French publishing. We are now in Senegal, and our books are being read by children there, DRC, and many other countries. Soon we shall be going to Arabic Africa, and then we finish with Portuguese Africa to ensure that the entire continent is covered. I think in a nutshell, that's what it is. Longhorn has about 100 employees at the moment. We have subsidiaries in Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda, as I've just mentioned to you. We own Law Africa here in Kenya. We own 92% of shares there. And it's a reasonably busy operation at the moment, ensuring that we churn out excellent reading materials to our children. The other major milestone is digitization. We started digitization about 4 years back. Our turnover at the time was $1 million shillings, and now we are looking at over $1 million of digitized materials. So our growth has been exponential in that area, and we pride ourselves, as I said, as a leading digital publisher as well. For us, we look at our growth not necessarily on the financial side or the money that came in through turnover or profits, but also through what is it that we do. So for us to be the #1 provider of innovative learning solutions in Africa, then our growth must be measured first and foremost by the number of products, or how well we populate the 10 segments that I just described. When we listed 5 years ago, I can tell you that there were only 2 segments that had any turnover, which is exactly what everybody else also had, which is primary textbooks and secondary textbooks. That's it. Since then, because of the listing and because of the profile that the listing gave us, and because of the ability to generate funds, especially at the stock exchange as well as debt, we've been able to increase segments from 2 to 10. And that's phenomenal. That's like multiplying them 5 times. I don't think many businesses would look at things that way. When it comes, so that's growth through products, which to us is by far the most important milestone. The second milestone before we even go to the money is innovation. Most of our products were just the typical products that you would find anywhere. And there wouldn't have been a major difference between Longhorn and any other of the 109 publishers that we have here today. But today, if you look at our products, the content is much more enhanced than it has ever been. We used to submit books to the KICD here and probably get 30 or 40% approval rating. Each time we have ever taken our book since that time, we've been over 90%, meaning that the investment in the creativity of our books increased significantly. And that is true for Rwanda, true for Senegal, for any other market we've gone. We've not gone to any market and failed. Before, we used to go to a market and actually fail. So I think that is also another major milestone. But now getting to the money, since we listed, other than the year 2015, which had a specific reason, it was a tender that had been given in the 2015 year that did not replicate it, in the 2014 year that didn't replicate in the 2015 year, we've always been at 1 billion shillings. Before, it was less than 1 billion. So I'll just go back to 2014. Our year end is June, so when I say 2014, 2015, I think you can understand. 2014, 2015, the turnover was 848 million with a profit of 70 million. And that's the time I was hired, in 2015, immediately after that happened. So once I got hired, the turnover went up from 848 to 1 billion, 1.503 B, which was a 60-something% increase. And then the profits also went up to 104 million. The year that has just ended, which we are publishing now, the turnover is 3% lower at 1453, 1.453, but the profit has gone up to 133. In fact, as we go to the PE ratio, also has continuously gone up as a result of that. Therefore, I would say on those three areas, we have seen growth in the number of products, like I've just told you, in innovation, and also in our sales and profitability since the listing. Yeah. So I wanted to answer your question from a three-pronged approach, as opposed to just looking at the profits and the sales.
I think that's...
Education is similar across the world, and it doesn't matter what language is used to teach. And that's why we have books in Kinyarwanda, and none of my staff here speak Kinyarwanda. We have books in French, and I think only one member of my staff speaks fluent French. So the education or the instruction is exactly the same worldwide. I think what publishers like ourselves find as a challenge is the wherewithal to go to as many places as you can, because the children are exactly the same. They're learning the same information. If it's maths across the board. There's no biology in the US that is different from the biology here for a Form 1. And so once you get it right at the basic level, then the next logical step would go to the next market, which is right next to you. And so for us, the borders within Africa do not exist. There are none, because those children wake up, go to a similar school. If it's a public school, dilapidated. If it's a teacher, maybe somebody who has been trained as well. So every country we've gone, we haven't found any country that is way above the rest. None. They are all about the same. They have the same issues of infrastructure and delivery of content and information. And the equivalent KICD of those countries are also just about the same. Some may be more efficient, some may not be, but are generally the same. So we are informed to go out of a marketplace to search for greener pastures, because it doesn't cost as much having done the initial investments already here and done it well. So if you have a good biology book and the next step is to take it to Zambia, it's easier to even have it approved in Zambia. Very minimal changes will need to be made. So we become curriculum experts, both on the knowledge-based curriculum, which is the one you and I went through, and the new one Mr. Matiang'i has introduced called competency-based curriculum, where they de-emphasize on exams and cramming to being competent in whatever you're doing. So we are both experts in that, and indeed we have received contracts to simply do curriculums for various other countries, ourselves, like now acting like KICD for them. So having got that knowledge and the experience and the investment up front, then the next natural thing would be to use what you already have to go to those other markets. And that's what we did.
Okay. So the initial costs actually are not that high?
No, not at all. Because they just do a tender just like Kenya, and then you find that you have 80% of what they are looking for in the first place. So you're just tweaking it to their specific curriculum. The only subjects that could be of an issue is maybe social sciences, because they would be, who is the president of this country, what are the names of the provinces. Yes. Those ones may change once in a while. But for the other subjects, overwhelmingly, maths, sciences, English is the same. Swahili, same thing. So we find that it's easier for us not to hold on to our knowledge here, but also disseminate it across the African continent. In any case, it's consistent with our vision to be the #1 provider of innovative learning solutions in Africa. Yeah. We have a 20 billion shilling industry right now. That is the amount of money that the government releases to schools and parents use to buy books in Kenya. There are two problems, not just piracy, but there's another one. 16%, which is 3.2 billion, goes back to Treasury as VAT. We are the only country in the world, other than South Africa, that tax books or knowledge. It was done in 2013. With this new government, and this government now, the Jubilee government, started that immediately they got into office. Since before that, there was no VAT on books ever. In fact, there is none anywhere else in the world. So if you import books in Kenya, you pay 16% VAT. But a school in Turkana is not registered for VAT, so that becomes a cost to them. So if they're going to buy 100 books, they will buy 84. And what happens to the other 16? They go back to Treasury. So it's a zero-sum game. You wonder why you would want to. The government is the one that is releasing the 20, but then they take it back. But it was meant to buy books for children who are poor. But that's something that we have advocated all the way to the top. But now, 30%, which is 6 billion, goes to criminals in piracy. 30%. So 6 billion of our turnover is not realized because it goes to these criminals. Before, they used to work on River Road and small-time operations. It never used to have a major impact. It was about 1-2%. But now, I think it's because digitization and technology has also increased. So one is able to buy the genuine copy and go with it to China or India or someplace and actually get a better copy done. Yeah. And now print en masse in containers and bring them back to the country. Some of those books come through our neighboring countries. Others come through the Mombasa port itself. We've worked with the government to ensure that any book that is coming, the copyright holder should first endorse. We've told them to work through our association. A lot of things have happened since I took over as chairman. We are trying to get that down. And then the people who are doing that are obviously moneyed, because you can't get 20, 30 containers if you are a poor guy. The guy in River Road would probably have a machine worth 10, 20,000 shillings. So it's not going to be a big threat. But here we are dealing with high-class criminal activity. So it's also not easy. So, but the law enforcement is aware. The KECOBO, Kenya Copyright Board, and the CEO are all fully aware. And the police wing of KECOBO is also aware. So we are working together. I don't want to say that they're not doing a good job. They are doing a good job, because it has since come down. It's coming down. But we'll now be able to tell through this new cycle. You know, we normally sell our books in December, January, February, March, when the children go back to school. We sell 60% of our books then. We'll be able to tell whether there has been an impact. But we have done a lot of intervening measures by then. So our industry is affected by VAT and piracy. Like half of the money available actually goes to those two. Just about half. Yeah. Which is very annoying. Yeah. And I think we draw parallels with the medical, the pharmaceutical industry, because they also have exactly the same problem. But theirs, I understand, is even worse. Yeah. The generics would wipe out more than what they're selling on the other side. But those are issues that affect our industry, and we work as hard as we can to get ways around them. The publishing industry has been affected like any other corporate citizens. Number one, the biggest issue that we have as an industry is government changes. Because you come with this party with a manifesto saying that we are going to have this kind of system, education. Another one says the other. So one can win these 5 years, and we get ourselves into one way. Then the other one wins the next 5, and we must again undo everything that we have done. So for us, we yearn for a time where education, just like other sectors, like banking and all that, are not subject to the whims of the party that has won in a certain time. Because as we would like a policy that is not changing for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So it doesn't matter what regime comes, they can come and do their thing. But not having children to move this direction and the other direction. If you look at the older system, 7633, we had a change of government, and it became 844, I think in 1985. People who are going to Standard 8 had now, to go to Form 1, they had to go to Standard 8. Yes. And the subjects moved from 6 to over 15. And people got burdened with all these things and so on. That's a bad thing for children. They should never have had to undergo that. Now it's changing again to a competency-based curriculum. Who knows? Another 10 years, it can be knowledge-based again. That is our major problem. Now, when it comes specifically to the events of the Kenyan political situation over the last year, the buying power of our booksellers, the government pronouncements about one book policy, saying that and also the distribution system, where the government says it will not use booksellers, they will be doing it directly. That impacts our value chain. the bookseller immediately gets worried. What do I do with all these stocks? So they buy less. Then the school calendar has been affected, if you followed over the last 2-3 years, by strikes and all manner of pronouncements and bad blood between NAT, government, ministry, and other stakeholders. So we have seen parents taking a wait and see attitude. When the government says they are going to change the curriculum, you can't buy a book now on the old system and buy another one next year or next month. So you also say, I'm not going to buy. So the fact that the curriculum is changing has reduced our turnover substantially as an industry. That's a fact. The fact that the children are not in school all the time because of this political situation. Parents paid school fees for third term that started first week of September but ended the following month. It's unprecedented. Nobody seems to think that there is an actual impact on the economy on that. So for us, we are also not getting the parents to buy our books as a result because of all these upheavals. We are yearning for stability in the political system so that we can be able to make our investment decisions properly. But coming to Longhorn specifically, we foresaw that and diversified our portfolio. So we also sell to tertiary institutions, which are not as much affected, ECD centers, for example, and we have other products like digital and others, which are not too much affected by those changes. But more importantly, we have 11 other countries that have nothing to do with the Kenyan political situation. They don't even know what's happening. And that's why we want to tap as much as we can. When I got hired 2 years ago, our contribution from the region was 5%. But now the accounts for June 2017, just 3 months ago, 4 months ago, is 30%. 30% of our turnover is coming from outside, which is phenomenal. At a turnover of 1.5 billion, 30% coming out of Kenya in 2 years is actually, in our opinion, a very good thing. And we want to move it to 50%. So that's the way to deal with the Kenyan situation, because Kenya is our home market. It's where we have invested the most. And therefore, if there's a turbulence here, then it will affect us. So inside Kenya, we have diversified the product range in the segmentations, so that if it's primarily textbooks that are affected, it's only a small portion of what we are doing. And also outside of Kenya, we have gone to other markets that have nothing to do with Kenya. We are on a journey, a 3-year journey. Our strategic plans are 3 years. So we are right in the middle of our strategic plan, which is 1.5 years old. So we have another 1.5 years to go. Let's start there. When we started 1.5 years ago, as I just told you, we were in 2 segments. We are now in 10. We are in 7 countries. We are now in 11. If you go to the next 1.5 years, we shall be in more than 20 countries in the next 1.5 years, just consistent with that strategy of only that time. So if you finish those 3 and you do another 3, not even 10, but just another 3, you will find revenues coming here from more than 20 countries every single day. The number of children covered by our market moving from the current 170 million to over 300 million. All right. And the revenues of this business, including its profitability, because as I told you, there is no incremental costs when you go to those new markets because the product is already developed and the cost already incurred. You'll find that the profitability of the business should be what it should be. And what is it? Our profit after tax should be, in a well-run business, should be 10% of the revenues. Our GP should be 50% and above in a well-run operation where the printing decisions and others are being done properly. Our sales and marketing costs should not exceed 10% of our turnover either. So there are certain benchmarks which, if you look at how our accounts were 2 years ago and how they are now, right now we are dead on plan in terms of how those should be. So I see a business that is a 5 to 10 billion Kenya shilling business. Many countries are coming in, and the Longhorn being a truly Pan-African operation, not a Kenyan company that happens to have 11 subsidiaries, but a regional business that by default or mistake happens to be headquartered in Kenya, but could be headquartered anywhere else. That's what I see.